Hey everybody, good morning. It's nice and early on the morning Devo with Bowo. Hope you guys are doing good today. Sorry I'm in so early, and that just means I'm a little scared to tag everybody to come into the morning devotion that are usually online anyway, just because got it so early. But I have some chapel work going on, and many of you know I work in do a lot of chapel work for pro hockey, and so I'll be doing some chapel this morning, and get to come in early into the devotion to start a new book of the Bible, which is really cool. That's the beauty of the morning devo. We just go through the Bible. I just go through it, just book by book by book, and I've already gone through it once, and now I'm kind of in it again. So excited about that. And we're going to get into Luke 1 today and just pull out some gems of what we can do today, how it can apply to our life today. So I grew up not with the Bible. Most of you know that by now. I grew up in Southern California, very secular, progressive guy. Dad was more, I would say, Marxist in his philosophy and thinking, way of thinking. Certainly, I was raised around that kind of idea. So, what I see in our culture today is really nothing new in my mind. Very, very much the way I was raised. So, things that are new, like, say, for instance, something like DEI, that's a big kind of topic nowadays, diversity, equity, inclusion. Those are things that I remember just growing up around. So it's funny how things become mainstream, but I started reading the Bible when I was around 17 years old, and it really changed my life. I started in the book of Genesis and just read through it. Didn't go to a church, and really for reading the Bible anyway. Just read it myself. So that's why I do my devotions just through the Bible. So I'm going to get into it right now. You can always check out my archives at my YouTube channel at Beau Willette. It's a French-Canadian name, or you can just go to beauwillette.com, and that's kind of my catch-all. I've done a lot of writing, all kinds of stuff. Even some of my guitar lessons are on there because I went to university for guitar. And I'm pretty stoked. Today I get to see one of my professors from back in the day. So from university. So that is exciting, super exciting, and that's going to be great. So Luke says this is how the book starts. It says many people have set out to write accounts about the events that have been fulfilled among us. They used the eyewitness reports circulating among us from the early disciples. Having carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I also decided to write an accurate account for you, most honorable Theophilus, so you can be certain of the truth of everything you were taught. I love that. Luke wants to be certain. He wants to make sure that he's going to write Theophilus the right things. And I think like this kind of meticulous, historical detail is something that's so cool that's in the Bible. I certainly grew up thinking the Bible was a fairy tale. When I heard people say they were Christians, I thought, oh man, what a bunch of fools, man. It's like once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away. And I thought Christians were so, in a sense, lame, in a sense, gullible. I never would have, if someone would have said, hey, have you ever read C.S. Lewis, or have you ever read Blaise Pascal, or have you ever, do you know Francis Bacon, or, Isaac Newton, or people like, I would have never associated those people with Christianity, because I just thought Christianity was like a dumbed down thing. And I love even the Gospel of Luke is like, man, I am going to write a history. And this is going to be a detailed thing. I want to really get this thing right and make sure it's accurate. And I think this is something I could even take today, is that, I don't want to just say things to say things to people. But, when I respond to people about the things of God, is my heart really to give them an accurate understanding? even to maybe say to people, hey, I don't know that, but I want to look into that and then get back to you on that. So that I could have that kind of Luke detail. I want to give them some detail on it, a more better understanding of the text. And so Luke sets out to do this, and I just find that very, very cool. Are you like that? And are you that kind of Luke kind of person where you go, man, I want to give the right answer, to this person. And I love Luke's heart. Luke's heart to say, hey, Theophilus, most honorable Theophilus. Who knows where Theophilus was? Maybe he was who knows, was he the biggest skeptic? Was he a friend of Luke's? Was he this? Was he that? There's probably things we could look at to try to find out that answer. I don't know if there's I've never, I don't think, heard of actual, that it is this person in Luke's life. But whoever this person was, Luke calls him honorable Theophilus. Luke has a respect for people. And I love that. Honorable Theophilus. He's not just like, hey, I'm going to get you with this. I'm going to answer all your questions, man, because I'm going to get you. This kind of weird thing. And I grew up, with a lot of, in crews, in groups of dudes, and beating up each other and fighting and, wrestling and, and it's like, sometimes in Christianity, what you find is like people just verbally doing the same thing. They're no different than what I saw out in the world. They just put down, put down, put down. So sad. Man, my heart's for you, Theophilus. Is that where you're at? Where you want to love people by giving them a detail? Is it coming from love? The love of Christ is compelling you, to do it. Or is it an attack? These people, blah, get at them. Ugh. That's something that makes me just go, you know what? You're no different than what I grew up around. Same thing. It's just you got a different context. Now you're in this thing, it's called the Christian church. But when Herod was king of Judea, there was a Jewish priest named Zechariah. And he was a member of the priestly order of Abijah. And his wife Elizabeth was also from the priestly line of Aaron. So this is from the Levitical tribe. So if you know the tribes, the 12 tribes, that's where they're from. Zechariah and Elizabeth were righteous in God's eyes, careful to obey all of the Lord's commandments and regulations. These people really wanted to walk with the Lord. And they had no children because Elizabeth was unable to conceive, and they were both very old. Hey, how old were they? That's the question, right? It kind of begs that question. How old were they? Oh, they were 50. Woo, that means I'm old. It says, one day Zechariah was serving God in the temple, for his order was on duty that week. As was the custom of the priest, he was chosen by law to enter the sanctuary of the Lord and burn incense. While the incense was being burned, a great crowd stood outside praying. Now, I love this. I think there's something applicable to me too today. And that is, Zechariah and Elizabeth were people that were in the game. They were in it. They served. They might have served quietly. They might have just did it, when it was their time to serve, but they got in there and they served, and they just, they did what God asked them to do, and they wanted to do that. They wanted to honor God in that way. And I love that. Are you a person that's in the game? Is your Christianity one that oh yeah, I'm a Christian, but I don't have anything to do with the body of Christ, what we call the church, that church is just a mess, so I don't want to really be a part of it. Well, I hate to tell you, but everybody's a mess. No one is good, no, not one. There is no one righteous. No matter where you go, you are there, and you are the one that needs salvation just like everybody else. And the envy that's in other people, it's also in you. The lust that's in other people is also in you. The hate that's in people is also in you. And, so, get in the game. It's Jesus's church. He loves his body, the church. He dies for the church. And so the least we could do, right, as servants of Jesus is to serve his body, to be in his church. Well, I don't know what to do. Older women teach the younger women. Hey, older women, are you getting with the younger women in the church and teaching them? Hey, older men, are you getting with the younger men in the church and teaching them? Are you picking up your, are you the baton, Are you running the race, kind of thing? Zachariah, Elizabeth, man, running the race. While Zechariah was in the sanctuary, an angel of the Lord appeared to him. This messenger comes, standing to the right of the incense altar. Zechariah was shaken and overwhelmed with fear when he saw him. But the angel said, "Don't be afraid, Zechariah. God has heard your prayer. Your wife Elizabeth will give you a son, and you are to name him John." And, where I come from, I remember growing up in Sun Valley in North Hollywood, my best friend was Juan, not John. "You will have a great joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth. For he will be great in the eyes of the Lord. He must never touch wine or other alcoholic drinks." I love the idea that, righteous in the eyes of the Lord, great in the eyes of the Lord. It's kind of neat, but a lot of times we want to be great in the eyes of other people. We're filled with pretense. How do other people see me? Am I doing the things that other people will want me to do so this can blah, 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 blah? That's called manipulation, right? And a lot of us walk in those ways, where we're walking in ways that we're manipulating everything. We're not being real. I love that these people are interested in what God's thinking of them. Am I serving God? Am I right in the eyes of God? Do I find favor in God's eyes? I love that focus of, hey, Luke tells us, they found favor in God's eyes. Am I more concerned about God's eyes, or, hey, what do people think of me at the church? And do I look the part? And do I da-da-da-da-da? And what if I don't? And what's going to happen? And, and all this. And really what's running me is fear and insecurity and all this stuff like that. Has nothing to do with faith at that point, right? It's just a bunch of fear and insecurity running life. But these people were focused on God. Can today I just be focused on God? Hey, God, how can I honor you? How can I please you, today? And not worry about what other people think, that kind of idea. Jesus was concerned about his Father, honoring his Father. And what did it get him? It got him crucified. That's what it got him. But he was so concerned, so interested in honoring his Father, he wouldn't buckle. He wouldn't buy into what other people wanted him to do. And believe me, many people wanted him to do many things. And it says that this man would be a man of spirit and power, the power of Elijah, and he will prepare the way for the coming of the Lord, meaning the coming of Yahweh. This is the idea in the Old Testament, in the book of Isaiah and the book of Malachi, that it would be the coming of Yahweh. And he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and he will cause those who are rebellious to accept the wisdom of the godly. And Zechariah said to the angel, "How can I be sure of this, that this will happen? I am old now, and my wife is also well among in years." It's a good question. Hey, God, how is it going to happen? Because, just things don't work like they used to work anymore. And I love that sometimes we can come to God and just share, the most intimate of things, about our lives and about where we're at and about our bodies and about how they just don't react anymore like they used to, and that they go through their flaws and they have their weaknesses, and we can bring that before the Lord. And so then the angel says, "I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God. It was he who sent me to bring you this good news." And that must have just blessed Zechariah. And it says, "But now, since you didn't believe what I said, you will be silent and unable to speak until the child is born, for my words will certainly be fulfilled at their proper time." Man, sometimes even though it's right there before our faith, we just don't act in what? Faith. We don't trust. We don't believe. Even though it's right there, it's okay. God's right there with you. You can just be the real you. You don't have to, be anybody else. But, God, can I really trust God? Even though God has already shown himself so faithful to you, right? So faithful to you, but we still sometimes don't believe. Isn't that amazing? How we are like Zechariah so much. Meanwhile, the people are waiting for Zechariah to come out of the sanctuary, wondering why he was taking so long. And when he finally did come out, he couldn't speak to them. Then he realized from his gestures that his silence that he must have seen a vision in the sanctuary. Then Zechariah's week of service in the temple was over, and he returned home. Soon afterward, his wife Elizabeth became pregnant and went into seclusion for 5 months. "How kind the Lord is," she exclaimed. "He has taken away my disgrace of having no children." I love that. So beautiful, right? Where Elizabeth becomes pregnant. And notice she goes into seclusion. Many reasons why maybe she went into seclusion. I would imagine, just the idea of her being older and having a baby there, it might have been something that's kind of awkward. And so she goes, maybe it's to take care of the child that's within her and just to kind of lay low, because of her older age. And maybe she just was the type of person where it wasn't so much about her. Maybe she was that person that everything's about her. Everything's that me, look at me, where it's so constant, right? Where it was her demeanor just to be quiet. It could be many of those things, all of them together, but I love that. She goes into seclusion for 5 months. And what do we read? It says, "How kind the Lord is." Where's her heart at? Her heart's on God. Focused on pleasing God, on honoring God. So really what we see, just this morning in the morning Devo is just a lot of honoring God. Luke wants to honor the Lord. He wants to give a right account. He wants to dish it out well, to Theophilus. Maybe I can do that today. Maybe God will use that today as I have my meetings and run into people, that I could, just hand out the Word of God with a joy in my heart, whoever it is. If it's some skeptics, yeah, so what? I was skeptical. Man, I was a hater, but people loved me. And that's what started changing my life, is maybe these Christians aren't, these weird, Roman-looking adversarial-like people, because that's how I thought, is they were all just this kind of, you got to do it this way, and blah, 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 blah. But man, Luke just has a love for Theophilus, wants to give it right. We see Zechariah, who, man, is serving in the temple, him and Elizabeth, and doing their things and wanting to honor God in their service unto the Lord. And Zechariah, we see him, though struggling with trusting God, when it seems like, he knows God is there, he knows God's in his life, but man, can God really, take care of me? Can God really do that? Is God really able? And I love it. They don't show any pretense in their service. They just serve. They just serve unto the Lord. The focus is God. But we see a frail man too, a man who's not perfect, a man who struggles in his faith as well, and you might be that. And then we see Elizabeth, the person who wants to honor God, and we see her just going, thanking God, so blessed that she now has a child. And I love that demeanor that she has. Not a loud person, but just that person who has that, quiet walk with the Lord. That's super precious. So this, it's a great devotion. It's a good time for us to just think about, hey, am I like a Luke? How am I like Zechariah? How am I like Elizabeth? Why do I do the things I do within the church? Am I serving within the church? What is really the motivation behind my attitudes, my behaviors? Is there something else going on? Or am I doing things with the right heart? Is the love of Christ the thing that compels me? Kind of thing. So, very cool. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I can't believe that this morning, early morning, people are in the place of devotion, right? Gosh, maybe I should do it really early all the time. No. Anyway, you guys take care, okay? Have a great day, and we will talk at you later. Have a great weekend, too. Bye-bye.